So, Victoria, uh, anything special about this Tuesday to you that you can think of?
Well, I accidentally spoiled the ending of my English book in class because apparently no one knows how War of the Worlds ends. I thought that was common knowledge.
I would think so.
Yeah. We're gonna get crunk.
Yeah. Remember, kids, enjoy your...
Wait, not that much. Stop. I'm not that thirsty.
Remember, kids, enjoy your non-alcoholic sparkling apple juice responsibly. And
Cheers.
happy 30th birthday to Adventures of I don't know what the show is called.
Adventures
I'm faking it this whole time.
He's drunk. He can't say it properly.
I'm a real lightweight. Happy 30th birthday to Adventures in Odyssey on this, the 21st of November, 2017. And you are watching
The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. See, kids, this is what being an adult looks like. It means you get to drink fizzy juice in fancy cups.
Yeah. It's great. I love being an adult.
No, you don't.
Also, I'm Devin, and you're Victoria.
Yeah.
You left that part out. What are we talking about today, Victoria? I'm going to ambush you every time you go to take a drink.
We're talking about the second Blackgaard novel, and this one's called Pond's Play.
Yes.
And
finally, we've done all of the other stuff that we need to do, so we can finally go back and talk about this novel that went up on the Odyssey months ago.
We're going to try and do this under an hour, so we'll see how that goes.
And if we have time, hopefully we can also get to predictions for Album 64, because that's going to be coming out probably in a couple weeks.
So,
we forgot to do the predictions up until now.
Short and sweet. This book is written by...
Marianne Herring, I believe.
Oh, I thought they were all written by
No,
Paul.
Phil Waller, sorry.
Yeah, Phil.
What am I talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about. They're all written by the same person.
Yes, you are correct. I'm mixing up book reviews.
Okay, anyway, so this one is Eugene's Dilemma and Connie Goes to Camp.
Parts 1 et 2.
Yeah, and that's it. And I really, really liked it because I don't know about you, but like I think that Connie Goes to Camp is probably the weakest of the Blackgaard episodes.
Well, it's only like tangentially a Blackgaard one.
Yeah, in like album 5. But like I was kind of like when the Connie part started, because like I've heard that episode, those 2 episodes, as much as I've heard the other Blackgaard ones. Mm-hmm. Like maybe a little bit less in album 5, but like the other ones are so much more like they're so much better.
Well,
so like that one, if you listen to it as much as you listen to the other ones, you're gonna get a little bit tired of it. It's still good.
It depends on what you're listening to it for, right? Because if you're listening to it as part of the Blackgaard saga, then yeah, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that episode, and only the Lucy stuff actually relates, and like the Lucy Connie stuff. Well, the Lucy Connie stuff as it relates to Lucy only.
Yeah. So it cut out all the stuff with the boys, and it was written all in letter form.
And all the stuff with... Well, I guess
it cut out basically everything. I actually really liked it. That probably makes me sound terrible. I have to say, I do like Connie Goes to Camp Part 1 and 2. But I also really like this, because it was short and sweet, like I already said. It was Connie just telling June everything in letter form. I think there were only like 2 or 3 letters. And they were, like, really far apart, like, where there's space in the book. No, it was, like, only 2 or 3.
Really?
I was just very surprised. Connie probably only had about, like, 10-ish pages out of this over 100-page...
154.
154-page
there was definitely
book.
more than that.
The majority of it went to Richard. And
Eugene, yeah.
And Eugene.
Eugene's Dilemma.
Richard had,
the
like, the most stuff,
majority of it.
Richard was, like... basically the main character of this book, and I'm okay with that.
Really?
But Wit had like 2 lines, and he was mentioned like 3 times, and that was it. He actually doesn't physically appear until like the last 2 pages of the book, because that's when the trial happens for Eugene's Dilemma. And then he says, like, the lines that are in the episode for him, like, Eugene, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And then, like, the other line... And then he's like, hey, want to come work at What's End? And Eugene's like, do I? And then Richard Richard walks away and he's like,
But
so much on Richard. So much of the plan given away.
Let's talk about...
the curse?
Let's talk about the new stuff that wasn't in the episodes before.
Devin has very mixed feelings. He actually told me about it before I got there. He was so eager to talk about it with someone.
I didn't really tell you about it so much as make vague hints to encourage you to read it.
You're like, there's a curse, and Blackgaard got weird backstory stuff.
I said there's like some ancient prophecy or something. Very different than a curse.
Well, we don't know if it's like an ancient... Okay, we should explain.
Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so...
I don't want to give, like, full summaries of these Blackgaard books, because everyone should actually, like, really legitimately read them, because they are so good.
Just summarize the new bits.
And also, we've already...
The new bits with the Gower building
we'll explain the new bits. So, there's the building that eventually becomes Blackgaard's Palace and the Electric Palace, and we get some... Castle. Yeah, that's... I always say Blackgaard Palace.
That's okay. They said They said like Electric Castle in Rock and Roll Instruments of Destruction. Was it 60 something? Yeah.
Okay. You can just say like Bart was stoned in that episode or something like that and get away with it. You know, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get some history on that building. And we find out that it's been cursed by Old Man Gower, who is now
allegedly
my favorite character in all of Odyssey.
Allegedly has been cursed.
Just so weird and out of nowhere with, like, barely any explanation. So, like, let me give you the deets on this. It is so funny, because it just comes out of the blue. They're trying to find a place for Blackgaard to literally set up shop, and they find like the building, and there are several small businesses inside of it, but like all of them are failing, so they all sell out
and have always failed.
Yeah, and have always failed except for this one, which I'll get back to. But the reason all of them have always failed except for the one is because like the one is just like an oddity. No one knows why it's not failing. They all think it like should and are surprised it's not, because Old Man Gower used to own this place, and he got, like...
the land.
Yeah, he got, like, tricked out of it or something like that. It's very vague. Yeah, swindled out of it. And then he cursed it after he lost it.
So that all future businesses will fail.
It's so funny. And, like, all the future businesses fail, and they're like, we're cursed! And so then they totally hand off the building, and they're like really glad that someone's buying it, so like they don't have to do all this anymore. And there's this one guy that won't sell the building because he's doing like super well. They don't even let on at first like how well he's doing, and so Glossman and the Webster development firm. I'll explain that in a sec.
It's not as weird. I mean, it's surprising, but it's not...
I'm not going to get over it easily or soon. They try to, like, make things complicated and hard for this guy, so he used to, like, pay higher lighting bills and other things. But he's making so much money, he just, like, doesn't care, which was really funny, because it made, like, Blossman really flustered and stuff. We get to meet the Webster development firm. One person lives in his mother's basement, balding, kind of overweight, went to school with Glossman, and he's, like, really weaselly, almost as much as Blackgaard is how the book describes him.
Almost as unscrupulous.
Yeah.
Different than Weasley.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the red hair.
He actually kind of reminded me of...
Weasley?
Yeah.
Right.
He actually kind of reminded me of Jellyfish. There was one funny scene where...
Speaking of, we'll get
Jellyfish is mentioned!
Not just mentioned, but we'll get there. Good, sorry, finish explaining this.
Yeah, Jellyfish does stuff in this book. But there's this one funny scene where Philip is, like, trying to deal with, like, the guy not selling the building, and he meets Webster Development Firm guy, I can't remember his name.
Webster.
Is that actually it?
Yes.
Oh.
It was something Webster, I don't remember what his first name was.
I remember it was, like, a name I liked, and I was like, now I can't like this name anymore.
It might be in here later,
Thanks,
but go on, just...
So, they're like, the guy's having like this huge sale just because he can, because he's awesome. And so then
Mansfield.
Webster just goes in and he like buys all this stuff. And Glassman's like, what are you doing? You're giving him more business, making him more rich, so he won't do what we want. And then he's like, but the sales are so good. And then Glassman sees Eugene, who's applying.
And then Mansfield films it and turns into a commercial. It's like, even our enemies can't resist these sales.
Please. I loved him so much. And then Eugene's there because this is like a tech store. It's kind of like...
It's a computer store.
Electric Palace if it didn't suck.
It's a computer store.
Yeah. And so Eugene applies for a job there, and then Glassman sees him, and he actually...
Makes the biggest mistake of his life.
He makes the biggest mistake of his life. It was very surprising at this point.
Remember, this is just a summary.
Yeah, this book takes place directly after the first book does. So, like, we even get a little bit of the conversation that was happening at the end of the first book to begin this.
Richard and Blackgaard
being kidnapped by Glassman and Blackgaard, and then Blackgaard offering him a job. So he tells Richard to get the job at the college, and then later in the scene in the book, Glassman's like, hey, if you can't find a job, they're hiring at the college.
Which, as you start reading this, the obvious thought is, oh, he's trying to get another, another foot in the door.
He's, like, trying to trick him. But then it's, like, in Glassman's narration, and he's like, I'm sincerely trying to help this kid out, because that's what my fiancé, remember her from the first book, would have wanted me to do. And he's like, and then second thought, he's like, oh, also, it might be good to have a foot in the door. Like, as a second thought. And I was like, who are you?
He's like, Eugene, I can talk to this person, try and get you a job. He walks away, he's like, this is what she would have wanted me to do. I was like, where did that come from?
It was so funny.
It was so out of left field. I felt like I got clocked in the face.
I feel like the majority, just everything that had to do with Glassman in this book was like, what is happening here?
It was really weird.
It was so funny.
Talk about Professor M.
Oh, man.
Which may or may not be supposed to be a reference to Moriarty.
I'm super confused about everything that scene, so you do it.
Okay, so Blackgaard at one point is ruminating to himself over his plans, and he thinks back to old Professor M, I guess, who's this...
I can't drink during this.
It's this guy who, trained him up in all of his villainous ways, that he, met up with him in South America, and he, trained him in all of these things. And I guess Professor M was also going after the mineral, but he was, sick and he died just short of attaining that goal.
And Blackgaard's like, I beat him to the chase.
And then Blackgaard, walks over to the wall and there's, he has framed, this ancient crumbling piece of paper.
Which he got, these old people to translate.
No, he got Professor M translate because it's in, this ancient dead language. Or whatever.
And it says Whitaker on it.
This ancient dead language that Professor M translated for him, and it's all in this language except for the last 3 words, which are John Avery Whitaker.
No. So funny. And I honestly I stopped and I was like, is this one of the Imagination Station books? Because it feels like one of the Imagination Station books.
It's technically possible that this is an ancient document which was written within Whit's lifetime since he bought it, and
since he's super old.
Exactly, yeah. I was Time Lord theory is supporting it.
Do you think he...
It's like when they have manuscripts of the Doctor that are 2,000 years old that draw the TARDIS and stuff. That's what this is.
This is such a stretch.
But it sounds like there's some prophecy about Whit and Wit's End from 2,000
What I'm
years
about to say is such a stretch, but
South
it's
America.
The only thing that can make sense to me is that Whit has dabbled in archaeology, and he like dug up this parchment.
And he signed his name on it.
And he signed his name on it to be like, Whit was here, and he put him back.
Whit, there's a reason Whit isn't still an archaeologist. He's really not very
later in this version of the books, Blackgaard's gonna show it to him, and Whit's gonna be like, oh my gosh, that worked.
It's like a message in a bottle.
He's gonna be laughing.
But way harder to find.
Do you think, or Jack's gonna see it? Like, when they're in the tunnel, Blackgaard's gonna pull it out, and Jack's gonna be like, oh my gosh, we used to graffiti everything when we were kids, and Blackgaard's just gonna, like, he's not gonna set the bomb off to, like, make a statement. He's just gonna set it out because he's really angry.
Yeah. Okay, so That's about it for the extra stuff. But it's very... Oh, and
Jellyfish.
Then... Well, I'll talk about that. That's not really an extra scene so much as like a couple lines. I have notes about that later, so we'll get there. And then also Richard remembers that, because he overhears like, oh, they can't figure out how to get the building away from Mansfield, that someone else, some old lady by the name of Mansfield, so probably like his mother or something, is one of the old ladies in Odyssey retirement home. And he has come up with some angle to like manipulate her into getting the building.
Which we will see in the next book, I'm sure.
Yeah, so.
This book was like so interesting to me because it was, like I said, it was mostly Richard. So like all new stuff basically. And even in the Eugene's dilemma stuff, a lot of it was Richard's POV. And it was just showing him like do everything.
Yeah, we learned a lot of interesting stuff about how all the stuff went down.
I love Richard so much. There's one part actually though, like where he made me upset because he was being a total jerk
to the girl, the recruitment girl.
To the recruitment girl, right after he did like, or right before he was gonna do his final interview with Dr. Burgelmeister.
Yeah.
Why is he named after the character from the Christmas thing?
Because it's a character from the Christmas thing. It's a great name. Burgermeister Meisterburger.
It's so intimidating when you say that. You take a drink.
God.
I was trying to get you to spit it out. Anyway, so he had like a minute to kill before his final interview started, and he walked over to a girl who had like a little booth set up, and she was the person who was
trying to find counselors for the gifted kids.
So like Nicholas and the others. And then Richard was like really bored, so he was asking her questions. And then he was like, also, she's like attractive too, which he mentions kind of offhandedly. And then he like asks her all these questions, and then he makes her believe he wants to sign up. And then he's just like, no, actually, that's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and so are you. And he walks away, and I was just like, what a jerk. And then... I
mean, in like 3 episodes, he almost murders Tom Riley.
Yeah, so. I know, but I really love Richard. And then the part that made me the most mad was he, like, after the interview, where it was actually kind of funny, he found out Eugene got the job, and he's never heard of Eugene before at this point, which I thought was interesting. Eugene knows Richard, though. They don't explain that. It made me really confused.
He does it... Someone like reminds him of something. The only thing I was like, reminds him of Dalton Kern?
I don't know. I don't know
where is that going? They mentioned it like 12 times.
I know.
And then the book ended, they had explained it yet. I was like...
Every single time Eugene sees Richard, he's just like, he looks so familiar. He reminds me of someone. And then it ends. And then it's
I kept on trying to put it together.
Because Richard doesn't know him, so it's not like they've met before. Unless they're like, they want to pull this angle where it's like, Richard was adopted, and he was in the same adoption place Eugene was in, and he bullied Eugene, which I don't think so.
We also, like, Richard lives with his parents.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Eugene was preliminarily adopted, but except that doesn't happen, because we know Eugene wasn't in, like, the foster system, like, in a home, like, non-permanent. We know how Eugene's living situation progressed.
I have no idea. I don't know at all.
Excuse me. That's a really good point.
I'm so confused about that.
Because when it comes to mysteries like this, I always break it down by, like, consider, like, every possible possibility and then start, like, breaking them all down and then start chopping off limbs. And so my first thing is, like, either A, the person Eugene is being reminded of is actually Richard, or B, it's someone else. But I hadn't thought about the fact that Richard
Unless
didn't know Eugene. Unless
they're going to add some more prophecy stuff, but with Eugene
that Richard didn't know Eugene, that's a good point. So it is likely it's not Richard that Eugene is thinking of.
Unless Richard forgot, but he's like pretty good with
that doesn't seem likely.
That kind of stuff, so it seems out of character that he would forget someone like Eugene.
You see, Victoria, a long time ago, there was a summer camp, and Eugene was there, and his nickname was Goggles. But little did he know that there was another kid at this camp, and that he would meet many years later, and he didn't know who it was, and that kid was Richard Maxwell. It's like Muppet Babies.
Oh my gosh.
It's like Muppet Babies. All of the kids were actually at that camp, like all the characters in Odyssey were at that camp, and they don't find out.
Please. Phil. Kathy, tell Phil.
Okay, so anyways, back to the beginning of the book.
So
Back to the first
No, the thing I was going to say is Richard, after he realizes he can't get the job, he goes back over to the recruitment table and he starts, like, flirting with the girl. And then because he's trying to, like, get an in at the
because he saw Nicholas going into the high security room.
Yeah, and he realized that there were, like, people in the computer rooms and that's where he needs to get to. So then he, like, starts flirting with her, and he's just like, yeah, I can probably snag a date with her. And she's, like, totally falling for it. And I'm like, I'm mad at this. I am upset. This is not how you treat people. Anyway.
So, beginning of the book. We pick up where we left off with the last book, like Victoria said. Richard has been taken by Blackgaard from outside the Odyssey retirement home, hauled in the back of a van for hours, blindfolded, and then brought to an empty warehouse where Glossman is doing his best to be intimidating, and yet somehow, after all of these events, Richard is still under the impression that Glossman is doing this all over the table as a city councilman. Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm like... Richard, you know what it's like? It's like Hopelessly Devoted when Erica gets taken to the warehouse and like tied her arms to a chair, and she's like, "Are you even a real policeman?" That's what this is. That's exactly what this is. Except
like,
Richard
honey,
is
I love you,
except Richard is a grown man with a criminal past, and he still is buying this.
How old do you think he is? Because I always see him as like 19 or 20.
I don't know. He's old enough that it's
like he's
super creepy, his relationship with Lucy.
It is. I don't know, I think he's 19, because he has to be older than Connie and Eugene.
Yeah. Yep. I'll get that later. Blackgaard, like the Blackgaard that we see in the scene, here talking to Richard, reminds me very much of all things, the Blackgaard virus in Blackgaard's Revenge. The way that he does, like, he does the most sinister and awful-seeming things, and then he instantly convinces you that it's all perfectly normal and logical, and you're really reading way too much into these things. When Richard's like, you, like, threw me in a van and brought me here blindfolded for hours, and he was like, oh, nonsense, I was just because of this and this. This is all perfectly normal, and it was the easiest way to do it.
Mr. Spaghetti Strainer.
And Richard's like, oh, yeah, I guess that does make sense then, okay. And I was like, wow, this worked on Aubrey Shepard. I didn't think that this would work on Richard Maxwell.
We learned that Richard isn't as smart as we originally thought.
He's having a bad day, Victoria.
Blackgaard's pretty much like, but you never said I couldn't. Richard's like, good point.
So he's like, I want to hire you for all these things. And then finally he's like, okay. And then he sends it back to Odyssey. And then we see Connie at Camp Whatanut. Right off the bat, they call Lucy Cunningham Schultz, and I was like, Hal Cunningham is still alive at this point.
Little did they know that her mom was having an affair.
Yeah, I was like, ugh. Yeah, because Hal Cunningham is mentioned by George Barkley in Our Best Vacation Ever.
Which is like 2 episodes from now.
And you can't even say like, oh, chronology's kind of weird. No, it has to be after this, because in that episode, they later on... They build up the... they
have the farm raising.
They have the farm raising, which happens after the barn has burned down, which obviously it cannot have happened by this point. I never
made that connection for the longest time.
It took me a long time, yeah.
Like, I think I've already mentioned that in this podcast, but
well,
still.
You know what the problem is with it? It's the fact that we owned that episode as part of Drive Time before we'd heard the rest of Album 5.
Oh, that's true.
And so to us, it was just a scene in the
I'm
episode of things that they do.
we've already had this conversation like 6 times in this podcast.
I don't think so.
At least once.
Also, it seems really odd to me, I brought this up to Victoria, really odd to me how Connie exposits the appearances of her cabin to June.
And she gets some of the appearances wrong, which bothered me.
Yeah.
She says that Robin has red hair, except for Robin is on the Just in Time cover, and she clearly has black hair. And I was just like, that's wrong. She was like, she has red hair and freckles, and I was like, no. And
I know Mandy in the past has been given 2 conflicting hair colors.
I want to say that...
She can also dye her hair or whatever.
She has blonde hair in reality, but she's wearing a wig on the
album cover 35.
Wizard of Oz thing.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, they say her hair is brown in an episode.
Oh.
And then they give her blonde hair on the 35 cover, and they might say her hair is blonde
a scene in Worst Day Ever where someone dumps hair dye on her. That's how it works.
They might also say somewhere else their hair's blonde. I don't remember. Anyways, it's weird because Connie is like, hey, you know... Lucy and Donna and Robin, these are all people with whom you're familiar. Let me tell you what hair color they have and what their facial features are like.
Do you think Connie just forgot what Robin looked like? Do you think there was another girl there and she just thought she was Robin, so she was calling her Robin for the entire week, even though it's Robin in the episode?
Jill killed her and replaced her with someone. What a girl. So yeah, it's weird that Connie explains what they look like less than a paragraph after she says, oh, you know these people from Wits End and from church. Let me tell you what they look like. And even if she was trying to, like, convey, like, the fact, like, oh, they all have different hair colors because she was making, like, an anecdotal thing about it, she still gives excess detail, like, what are their eye colors and their freckles. And it's confusing. It's only written for our benefit as the reader, since we all know what they look like except for Allison. And we do get Allison's last name, which is Leskowski, and also full names for Jill and her uncle, too. And it's like, ooh, cool.
When they were talking about her uncle, they said the word tobacco, and I was just like, oh my gosh, and I was like, wait, no, that's in the episode. Never mind. Okay, this is the funniest thing. I'm glad we got to this part. Okay, so Richard was in Glossman's car, and Richard, on the way back after his kidnapping, they had the decency to put him in the front of the car this time. But Glossman had to drive him back to his dorm, and we find out that Richard wears cheap cologne, and it, like, infests Glossman's car, and so his car now smells like cheap cologne. And then later on, when he's having that scene where the WDF guy is, like, buying the electronics, the guy...
Holden Webster.
Yeah, Holden Webster. He smells Glossman, and he's just like, why do you smell like cheap cologne? And Glossman's like, it's on my clothes, I have to burn my clothes. And he also says, like, I have to sell my car. And I was like, he's gonna take 6 showers, and someone's gonna comment on it at a council meeting, and I'm like, burn your body!
Yeah, did you find it weird that it's now canonized outside of Islap Floor?
Oh, I didn't think of it. No!
Outside of Islap Floor that Richard is, like, doused in really strong cologne?
No, why did you do that to me? No, it's
not really weird.
canon. Oh, I was gonna ask you, are we gonna take this stuff in the book as canon?
I think we're basically supposed to, yeah. That's what it sounds like.
What about contradicting stuff?
It's not much, yeah. We're supposed to view this as, like, the more real version of the abridged events in the audio episodes, basically, from my understanding.
I think, like, I'm gonna pick and choose. Like, the prophecy, I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen. The stuff with Glossman's
who knows, it could turn out to be really interesting.
Ex-fiancé, I'm not sure at all.
Hey, you were pretty excited when it first happened.
I was, but now it's gotten weird. He was just like, that's what she would have wanted. And I was just like, if you hadn't done that, Blackgaard would have loved you.
So, yeah. Gower's Landing is the name of the building at 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Small shopping complex. The land originally belonged to Old Man Gower, and the legend is that when he was swindled out of the land, he thusly cursed all business there to fail.
As you do.
And they usually did. WDF nabbed it and bought out all of the remaining tenants, except for Mansfield Computer, so they could tear down the whole thing and rebuild it as Blackgaard's castle.
Like, I found it weird that of all the things they could have done, they're like, a curse, because they're like being like, curses are real, kids, even though they've had episodes about how curses aren't real.
Legend has it. It is still, though, it's a weird move for this show.
And it seems like really out of place for Odyssey, because like we have a whole episode on why curses aren't real in album 12, and then they pull this, and we know that the future businesses there are gonna fail too, so...
Here's the thing, though, Victoria.
Cursed?
Do you think... Yeah, on the one hand, I'm like, maybe they're gonna turn this into some sort of contrived object lesson in later books where they're like, well, I guess you shouldn't have believed in the curse after all.
Yeah, but it's accurate, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not only did these ones in the past fail, but we know Blackgaard's castle is going to burn down, and then the Electric Palace is going to be the Electric Palace.
And we know that Mansfield isn't going to work out.
Obviously.
Because it's going to get shut down and taken over, at their height of business, which is unlucky. So, like, what is this? Don't get me wrong. I keep on nagging this book, but I really liked it.
So we get to the weird thing with Glossman, like you said. This happens immediately after Blackgaard's talking about he needs to get more hackers in his pocket and feet in the door of the security programming division at the college, and then Glossman goes and tells Eugene to get it, and he owes him a favor for it and stuff. He's like, oh yes, this all makes sense. And then he's like, this is what Lizzie would do. And I was like, It was really weird.
It was weird.
And then immediately after, he was like, oh yeah, I also need to make him my ally too. I forgot about that. I forgot I was a bad guy. Sorry, guys.
I love the moment,
Philip
like,
Glossman redemption.
accidental redemption, like non-intentional. He's gonna come up back in the next album. He's gonna be a good guy, and Lizzie's gonna be with him.
Yeah.
And then he's gonna tell her everything, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that totally is what I would have done. You're right. You know me so well." When
they're talking about the computer store, it's really funny. Like, it's weird how these books and the original episodes, I guess to a lesser extent, really drive home how technologically antiquated lots of this arc is. Given, however, though, that when I was reading this, I was currently plowing through season 2 of Stranger Things, I was really put into the proper aesthetic for reading this.
That's good. I need to finish episode 2 of Stranger Things.
Of season 1.
Of season 1.
So, Jellyfish.
I really love how, like, on to Glossman was the second he started talking to Eugene. Because Eugene was just like, no, who is this guy? What's he up to? And then he's like, what about this job? And Eugene's like, I don't think so. And he left. Yeah. And then later he's just like, okay.
It's weird with the technology, like when Blackgaard first asked Richard if he can hack into it, and he's like, sure I can. Then his head, he's like, it's long. I didn't tell him. It only works if the computer is connected to the internet. And I was like, man, like, what a work.
Is that what a modem does?
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
Yeah. That's what he meant. He's like, if the
modems.
computer is like offline, then I can't hack into it. And I was like, no, really? I mean, I guess that was the thing non-computer people wouldn't realize back then, but the fact that not only would people might not realize that, but also the idea like, oh yeah, maybe the computer just isn't connected to the internet. That's a real possibility.
I want people who like don't realize how old some of the audio episodes are to like read the books and they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you people? So,
it's something, yeah.
Jellyfish.
So, we find out from Richard that Jellyfish was at wit's end when Applesauce initially went off. He was eavesdropping at the door of Wit's office.
Which is, like, crazy.
He heard Eugene and Connie get fired with his own ears. He was physically present when it happened, which is nuts.
So, if you listen really closely in album 5, you can hear him. You can hear him.
Yeah.
Just gotta listen closely.
So speaking of weird technology, they don't have cell phones. So Jellyfish, to contact Blackgaard, had a portable radio-connected telegraph machine that transmits
and Richard's
to Blackgaard's
talking
computer.
about it, and he's like, it's so cool.
I mean, it's fascinating because
it was interesting. It was really
he's
weird.
taken a telegraph machine and connected it to a portable radio, which is being received by Blackgaard's computer and like printing out on a dot matrix computer from the telegraph machine that is wireless. So it's
like, this is really extra. You can just use a public phone.
It's really weirdly anachronistic and bizarrely like cross chronology combined, just like out of timeline.
Yeah. It was weird.
Yeah, it's like, what a fascinatingly overcomplex and needless device when there's things like landlines you could have used.
Another thing I was going to ask your opinion about.
I mean, heck, shouldn't email have existed by this point, 89, I'm pretty sure?
I'll have to look up what year
it was around there.
Do you know
who sent the first email, out of curiosity?
Do you?
Yes. Or maybe it was the first international email.
Why would I know something like that, you nerd?
Because it was Queen Elizabeth.
She's like, I got dibs.
The second, by the way.
She's like, I got dibs. And everyone's like, but I want to talk to my family who's been in Afghanistan for 20 years. She's like, nah. Privilege. White privilege. What was I going to talk? Yeah, lines, they're essentially the same, but have like one word different, because I'm a nerd and I know that kind of thing.
Are really frustrating.
Yeah, they frustrate me, and I'm like,
it's completely unnecessary. Why would you change the one word?
What version do I take as canon? This is probably like the thing that frustrates me the most in this book, and it makes me like super anxious.
No, I feel you, because it's like there's some things where they need to change it for certain reasons.
Real. Like, the lines when it came to Eugene talking about the grade changing and stuff, and he's just like, the secretary, Annie, brought this, and I'm like, her name isn't mentioned in the original. But at the same time, I'm like, but they did add more female characters. So really I'm torn. She had a line, so yes, kind of.
Take that, Bechdel test.
Even though she was talking to a guy.
Exactly.
So that's how the Bechdel test works.
So Richard formed the grade change scandal at the college to replace the lost income when Blackgaard made him stop fencing items from the retirement home, which was an interesting connection. Well, that Phil's done a really good job at connecting all the disparate parts of the story.
I know, I really like it.
Make sense how they lead into each other.
It's done really well. And then stuff like the prophecy is added, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why does Eugene know Richard? Why?
Do you think the person... So, first off, do you think he's being reminded of Richard or someone else? After you said that, I think it must be someone else, or very probably should be someone else.
I don't know. I think it's a 50-50 chance. I feel like there could have been something that... I want to say there's something Richard got in trouble with, and Eugene found out about it and saw something about it and his picture, but I don't think
then
Richard...
later at a crucial moment he remembers who he is,
I don't think Richard actually ever got in trouble for anything until the grade changing scheme.
No, because Blackgaard said stuff about you've had trouble with the police or something like that.
No, but that's trouble with the police, that's not trouble with the college.
Oh, yeah.
So...
I thought that's what you meant.
Maybe he stole something from 7-Eleven and Eugene saw us this man was prosecuted, we have security cameras.
Yeah.
Picture in the window.
They described little Nicholas and his description felt so Angus MacDonald to me. It was adorable. It was aww.
Little Nicholas was just very emotional about everything, and I was like, this makes me, this is weird.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about this. Because I hate what they did with Nicholas. In the power, because it makes no sense. I like pretending that that's a different Nicholas.
The first time I saw someone bring that up, I was so flabbergasted. I was like, how could you possibly think that that's a different Nicholas?
Oh. Wait, what do you mean?
There are people who are like, I don't think that's Nicholas Adamsworth in that episode. I'm like, so you think there's another... super genius
with the same voice actor.
With the same voice actor.
He's really good with computers.
Yeah.
And upset about the fact that nothing's challenging enough, maybe because he used to go to college and his program got shut down. Yeah. He got back to sent back
to regular school. Yeah. Anyways.
And also, I like to think that even though Richard apologized to him when he came home to visit Odyssey, he was still really messed up, and that's why he did all the grade-changing things, because he got the idea from Richard, which makes everything about his character super dark, but, it's canon, though?
Yeah. So we finally confirmed that Eugene was already a grad student at this point in time, which might have been technically confirmed before. I'd have to check the Eugene lore, because we had a bunch of stuff about the different stages of his education in there.
Okay,
but
grad student means you've already gotten your first diploma, right?
Post-bachelor, yeah.
So I haven't got my bachelor.
No.
So I don't agree with this. I don't think that he'd be this far into his studies yet.
You don't think so?
No.
He's been in college since he was 13. 13/14.
That's true.
He turned 14 over the summer.
He's 17 in this, I think.
We don't know his actual age.
Okay,
and he probably
would have
taken less. He would have taken less than 4 years to get his bachelor's.
Connie's 16. I've always imagined Eugene as being 1 year older than Connie.
Okay, well, that's your imagination.
And then Richard's 19. It always cracks me up that Eugene always best Richard, and Richard's a couple of years older than him.
I'm just saying, bear in mind, Eugene would have gotten his degree very quickly, and he's already been in college for years at this point.
How old did Kathy say they were nowadays?
She didn't talk about Eugene.
What about Connie?
She said mid to late 20s, which is what I always say.
I always imagine Connie as being 33 or something like that. Because I was she needs to age more, I guess.
Let her be old.
Yeah, so Eugene
older,
is...
not obviously 33,
Eugene
she's
is
ancient.
Mid to late 20s then.
Okay, so...
They're all old. Don't pretend they're not.
I can't believe that Maxwell would have gotten direct access to the computers without having to go through Nikki and get Eugene involved in stopping his plans if it weren't for Glossman being the one to plant the seeds in Eugene's mind to apply. That is delicious to me.
The scene where, and the fact that, like, Glossman did it, because usually, like, this is what my ex-fiance would have wanted, makes it, like, 10 times funnier, because that made no sense.
Well, the best part is when...
And also the scene where he was talking about Blackgaard with it, and Blackgaard got really mad.
Yeah.
And then Richard's just like, I didn't get the job, and Glossman's like,
Glossman's just sitting there, like...
He's like, that was my bad. Because
like
Richard's like, I did get the job, and Blackgaard's like, you said it was in the bag. And Richard's like, some prep named Eugene got it. And Glossman's like, oh my god.
The best thing is Blackgaard's over the phone. He can't see what's going on, but Glossman's just standing there like like this. And Richard is just standing there amusedly watching Glossman.
He's watching, he's like, I'm on you. And he's like, I'm gonna get... Well, yeah, he said, like, he swore his revenge against Glossman, and I'm excited to see what happens with that, because they didn't really give any details, but he was like, I'm gonna get him. So, yeah, lots of things to look forward to in book 3.
So, back to camp, because that's where everyone's really invested in the story. I 1000% feel for Lucy's decisions at camp after hearing the way that Connie talks about her in her letter, because Lucy complains later on in the actual episode that we all know and love, unless you're Victoria.
I do like the episode.
I'm just joking about how everyone puts Lucy on a pedestal, and I'm like, I totally get that. But then, especially hearing Connie write in her letter, she's like, anyone else, literally anyone else in the world, I would be concerned about talking to Jill except for Lucy because she's a perfect incarnate.
She's like literally an angel from God.
She's practically a horse.
That's a deep joke. You have to go a couple episodes back.
That was literally the last episode.
Yeah. Oh. It's been so long since we recorded it.
And I told you this yesterday. I was like, the last episode we put out was Angels and Horsehair.
I wasn't listening, probably.
Yeah, and Connie is describing her like that. She's like, Lucy can do no wrong. She's absolutely perfect, and I trust her unlike anyone else on this planet. I was like, to Lucy, I was like, yeah, girl, you go break those rules. You show Connie. Connie must spend a really long time writing these letters, given that she's taking the time to include direct dialogue, and she put in the ellipses in the dialogue and everything. I'm like, that's why Connie's not in any of the events during the camp at all, because she just spends the whole time in her cabin writing letters.
The Lizzie Bennett Diaries, this show on YouTube. There's a book that goes along with it, and it has her recounting every single scene from memory, and it's so detailed. And there are scenes in the book where people see her diary and she writes about it, and they're like, "What is wrong with you? Why are these so detailed? Why does it have literally every single thing? That is exactly what I said for 10 minutes. How did you get every single word?" And Lizzie's like, "I have a really good memory."
Okay, so here's an explanation that was fresh about old Professor M. So we get a few paragraphs about Blackgaard's mentor, old Professor M. We get more backstory about Regis in these paragraphs than we maybe ever have before.
They mentioned Edwin.
No,
no, they didn't.
I
wanted them to. That's what it was.
Same way. It's all extremely mysterious, and it makes it sound like it's part of some prophecy thousands of years old, like we're in a JRPG or something. Professor M was evidently someone who dealt in ancient stuff, maybe some sort of unscrupulous treasure hunter, archaeologist, anti-Indiana Jones, whatever, who died of a sickness that it sounds like could have been cured by what he was seeking, which is probably the mineral under Wit's End. He had a super old paper written in ancient language Blackgaard couldn't decipher, but the professor translated for him, and all we know is the last 3 words on this crumbling piece of paper, the only 3 in English already, are John Avery Whittaker, and if that doesn't point to Wit being a Time Lord, I don't know what could.
You know what's a funnier answer than Wit just bearing it because he was like, I was here, is, what's his name? Professor M?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna call him M. So, M knew he was dying and he didn't have much time left, and Blackgaard was just, really wanted that thing, so he never told Blackgaard what it actually said. He made a fake one, and he, carried the real one to his grave, so it's still with him, and he just wrote some, crap about it on a guy he saw from the paper, and then he just gave it to Blackgaard, and Blackgaard's like, I must find this John Avery Whittaker, and M's laughing
if there's anyone
from his grave.
If there's anyone who's going to take that much spite to the grave with them, it would be the person who mentored Dr. Regis Blackgaard.
I'm going to keep this as my headcanon until proven otherwise.
The book version of this sure has Burgomeister using a lot more actual German than the original episodes, which was none. Which makes sense, I suppose. Like, it would be much more confusing in an audio format to parse what is English and what's German through his accent for some younger listeners, I imagine. But still, I thought that was interesting. They put in a lot of actual German in his dialogue. I really like when we see Richard trying to hack into Mabel and applesauce. I love the idea that computers were so simple back then that hacking consisted of going to any internet-connected computer and typing : //search / the name of the computer / the name of the system / the name of the program and hitting enter, and you've just hacked. Congratulations. You just like search / wits end. You
just hacked, and like sunglasses slide onto Richard.
Time to hack.
With Lawrence. Yes. Oh my gosh. Can you like get that and then just put Richard's face over it and it'd be so funny.
He literally types in like calling them /search / Mabel or wits end / Mabel / applesauce, and that's his hacking. It's so good. Eugene's dilemma. When I was young, I was very confused about why Eugene couldn't just tell the half-truth that he was correcting grades the night before that he had discovered were incorrect in the course of the checks that Burgomeister had told him to run, and then he was just fixing them to what they were supposed to be. And then I finally realized if he found mistakes, he wouldn't have been able to just fix them as he found them. He'd have to report the errors and have them investigating, not just change them back without telling Burgomeister about the errors in their system. I understand why Mr. Burgomeister mightn't have seen that Eugene was putting the grades back to their proper status, given that this was a very short notice meeting, so he likely didn't pull what the grade should have been. The same way that Eugene had that info like while he was checking the records, because he had more prep for that. However, I find it surprising that info was never dug up in all the files that were pulled for the official inquiry. It makes a little more sense once I find out it was later that afternoon. But still, at the least, in this moment, I would suspect the report that Dr. Burgomeister was looking at would show the changed grades, and something should have seemed off to him when he's seeing a bunch of A's changed to F's and D's if Eugene is supposedly being paid to do this for students.
And it's just like, my parents think I'm so perfect, I want to prove I'm not.
As a bunch of
tried
Lucy's.
To do bad on my test, but I accidentally got everything right.
A bunch of Lucy's and Sam's.
I couldn't do it.
I just circled them all blindly. That was when bad seems good.
Yeah, with
Sam.
Bernard
it was
tells
like
him not to.
Sam just like.
I love Bernard in that episode so much.
Sam answers like 2 questions and then not the rest of the test.
And Edwin's in that, and he's just like, I'm so bad because I
how bad
burn
me be.
People. I want to talk about Connie really quick.
Sure.
I was super surprised that if Jill hadn't said, like, what are you going to do? Kick us out of camp? She's like, honestly, if she hadn't said that, I wouldn't have sent him home. And I was like, oh my gosh.
That was great. She was really just so spite-fueled.
She was just like, you know what? Go. Like, you are out of here.
It was great.
I couldn't believe she did that. It surprised me that, like, she actually wasn't gonna send him home.
I know.
I was just like, this would have changed so much.
It's like that text post about, like, you won't shoot me.
Like, if Jill was having that conversation with someone other than Connie, and Connie was just talking to Lucy, she wouldn't have sent Lucy home, and I'm like, and Lucy wouldn't have gotten in that accident and stuff, and it would have changed the entire thing. But Jill sucks. Yeah. So
she does.
Everything else happened. Everything is Jill's fault. It happens to Lucy.
So, like I said, the inquiry, turns out it took place only mere hours after Eugene found out, which really surprised me, like, that they were able to get all the Board of Trustee members on that short notice.
That doesn't, I can confirm, that does not happen. I've had to be a part of inquiries at places I've worked, and it is at the very least, or at the very most, the next day. Like, it's generally the next day, because they need to, like, get all the people.
There's no way the college would have done this in a couple of hours.
Info.
Get out of here. Especially because Whit doesn't even work at the college. They had to call someone who has a different job.
Emergency, they will do it that day.
But
generally not, because this is not an emergency.
Phil changed the plot element about Whit noticing the changes to grades having started before Eugene could have done them. I was confused about this at first. I was like, why would you change that? Like, that would have just worked. And then I was like, oh, yeah, because in the timeline of this book, Richard started doing it after Eugene was hired, so that wouldn't work anymore.
Because I was actually thinking about that.
I was so confused.
No, because I was thinking about that when Richard started doing the grade thing, and I was like, you should have been doing that already.
I didn't pick up on that at all.
And then I was thinking, like, Eugene can totally get blamed for this because they don't have that as an alibi, except for then they just took that out.
Yeah.
I've never understood why Eugene just couldn't tell them everything, including the stuff about Nicholas.
Because then Nicholas would have got sent back, and he didn't want that.
No, why would he have gotten sent
Because
back?
even if he was under coercion, he was still doing the wrong thing. He was still changing students' grades.
Yeah, but he was being, like, threatened and stuff.
Yeah, but he was worried that they would still be like, you should have come and told us you still did the wrong thing.
But he didn't. That didn't happen, though.
Yeah, I know, but it could have happened, and that's what he was afraid of.
Do you think it would have happened if Eugene hadn't interfered?
I don't know.
You would have become the power Nicholas, but, like, *2.
Yeah.
You would have had *2 power.
He's like Syndrome.
It'd be called the superpower.
He's like the scorned little kid who grows up to become a supervillain.
The superpower and the glory, forever amen.
So that's the book.
I liked it.
There was a lot.
Did you like it more than the first one?
The first book, it was hard to gauge because the first book was like so surprising, like
yeah, that's
how much
what I
new
was
stuff.
Thinking.
The first book was blowing our minds with how
so
much
different than I thought it would be.
New stuff that we got, and this one continued on that same path we were expecting this time. But this one amplified that same path because it started bringing in whole huge swaths of like relevant plot information, not just lore, which is new, like whatever Professor M ancient paper thing is and stuff like that. And the
weird, but like everything
Gower's Landing and Mansfield
curse,
computers and stuff,
weird.
And like how Richard's going to use his retirement home connections to get them the
everything with
building.
Richard has been so amazing in these books. I'm not just saying that because Richard's like one of my favorite characters, but like it's also interesting, and everything with the retirement home always like plays into everything 10 times more than you'd ever expect, because you would not expect it
Definitely
in any
not.
way.
Yeah.
And like everything pays off, which is super satisfying. And these books are really good.
Yeah, because in the audio series, the only thing that his appearance in Mrs. Hooper really serves to do
is just introduce him really quick.
Well, it's
and
to
even
introduce
then you,
him.
like, forget about
it's
him.
to show that he is really a Renaissance man. So it kind of makes sense when you see him at the college later, and he's like, "Oh, sure, like I'm a counselor, I'm a computer guy, I'm a Renaissance." And we're like, "Oh yeah," and he works at the retirement home.
I think it's also supposed to paint him as kind of shady. The fact that like he's
kind of like shady and skeevy, and we find out that he's Rachel Weaver's step
the
brother.
person who's like a shoplifter and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And that he, like, knows some of the kids from Wits End because of his sister and stuff like that. But
honestly, it took me such a long time to actually, like, notice the fact that Richard was in that episode.
I was hoping you weren't going to say that.
So it doesn't really pay off?
Evidently not. For some of us. For one of us.
Apparently. I don't know. I remember one day I was like, wait, Richard's Richard! But wait, I was little.
Nicholas?
I was like super little when we first got this album.
I know. I'm giving you a pass.
So
this was
one of the first albums we ever got.
It was.
And when we started Odyssey, you were like a little under 10.
7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, and I was like 6. So like leave me alone.
So
let's hurry.
Final rating for the book.
5 stars. Super good. Actually, I shouldn't give it.
I was thinking about giving it 5 stars. I was like
4.9? 9999.
This is something to aspire to in the future.
Let's get rid of the curse. It makes no sense. And also the prophecy, because that was actually the curse was hilarious. Keep that. The prophecy made more no sense. The curse was so funny because it was just out of nowhere, and it was like, I'm gonna curse you out of spite, and it's gonna last 100 years.
Oh,
even though he's not super old. The prophecy was super.
I thought you were
too.
calling the prophecy a curse still because you were doing that earlier.
Yeah, I was, but then curse came out.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5. Honestly,
the prophecy was weird.
The new stuff was like really interesting that added in, and hilarious in the case of like the prophecy, which made me laugh endlessly.
The curse made me laugh harder than the prophecy. The prophecy just made me confused.
And then on the topic of episodes, we already had the Eugene's Dilemma stuff, but the new stuff it added, that was really interesting in the way that it tied all the events together while laying the works for like the later stuff that's going to happen with Blackgaard's plan. So I was like, good stuff.
Everything with Glossman was
5 out of 5.
Funny. Like the cologne and then getting Eugene the job when it's just like you had one job and it was to not get Eugene the job and you failed.
Do you want to get through album predictions in 4 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the end of the book. Now we're going to talk about predictions for album 64 because it's going to come out. We don't know exactly when. It's going to be
4 minutes.
It's going to be sometime in December.
4 minutes,
very
7.
soon. Yes. So the name of this album is Under the Surface. The album art is right here. So you'll notice that it kind of parallels album 63 because it was like up in the air, under the surface, as above, so below. And then
so we were talking about this yesterday. Devin's theory is this is a continuation off of Swept Away, and they're using the canoe to
haul the
car out. You said something about Penny having super strength when she touches an oar or something like that, even though she's clearly not.
Or something. Yeah, like
on
that.
This cover.
Yeah.
There's no oars.
It was Katrina, because we're talking about her brothers and stuff. Anyways.
That's Penny, though, isn't it?
That is Penny, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were talking about Katrina.
So, and the art also parallels it, because before it was like, Wooten and Penny are skydiving, and now Wooten and Penny are scuba diving.
Oh, yeah, you said that when Katrina holds an oar, she gets super strong. And I was like...
And then we did a whole Thor thing. And then we did like a Thor Ragnarok parallel. And that's where Katrina's brothers are.
Katrina's brothers have been trapped by...
They're like, we're not, no spoilers, we don't want to spoil Thor Ragnarok.
True. Go watch Thor Ragnarok.
But yeah, anyway, so the album art, we'll talk about the description and then get to the art and then the episode titles. Okay, so... Go. A scuba diving adventure leads to an unlikely investigation as Wooten and Penny try to find the owner of a camera they discovered at the bottom of Trickle Lake.
What?
It is Trickle Lake, and it is them pulling something up from the bottom.
We were right, it's the car.
Yeah. And that's...
Have you ever heard of a car phone? This is a car camera.
And that's not the only long-hidden secret being uncovered in Odyssey. When Wit sends Olivia and Matthew on an imagination station
adventure... We're gonna get the lesbian zombies.
...to Old Testament days... I love that was my favorite book of the Bible. The pair discovers that their heroes have unpleasant dark sides, too. The Jones and Parker Detective Agency investigates an author's long-lost final manuscript and discovers that the mystery may be bigger than they ever imagined.
Bring Maury back!
And after Buck laments his lack of family connection, Eugene takes him on a road trip to find out more about the boy's bewildering personal history.
Oh my gosh, have you read this before?
I read it earlier today.
Oh, why didn't you tell me?
Because I wanted your reaction. In these 6 thrilling adventures, you'll discover the reason millions of people can't wait to hear another exciting adventure in Odyssey. Okay, so we have Wooten and Penny camera in Trickle Lake. We have Olivia and Matthew go back to Old Testament dark heroes. Jones and Parker Detective Agency long lost author manuscript. And we have Buck and Eugene road trip to find out about
That's everything I've ever needed in my life.
Back's Buck story.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Sir Buddy's Snow Day. I wonder who that one's about.
Okay.
I can see you cringing.
So the episode titles that we have.
Do you think that one's going to have Dion?
I hope so. If so, I hope Dion doesn't just play the role of Rodney and Buddy as Alex Jefferson, and this is literally just Snow Day.
Nice again. Now.
Remember? I know. Yeah, but the show is sometimes like, oh, development, and it's like, no, throw this
no, but no, they're not allowed to do that with him.
Okay,
I love him so much.
Episode
1 minute.
832.
I'm gonna turn this off.
Thank you. 832. Your honest opinion, please. 833. The secret of the writer's ruse. 834. Sir Buddy's snowy day.
Don't get me to read it. I can't read that word.
Okay. 835 and 836, David and Absalom, parts 1 and 2.
And 837, out of the picture. So, honest opinion, please.
Okay, so obviously...
That one would be the road trip.
That's what I figure.
Yeah,
at first I was like,
everything else, it's pretty clear what they
exactly.
are.
At first I was like, oh, the last one would be the buck one, except then I was like, wait a minute, camera.
It's going to be like the strongest start ever to the season, and everything else is just going to be like mud to me, because that's going to be the only one
At first I was like...
It's not going to be the only one that matters. It's just, it will put me on another plane of existence, so the other ones won't matter as much in comparison.
At first I was like, there'll be lonely reviews when it's just me, because Victoria's on the astral plane.
Like, frothing at the mouth.
At first it was like, the finale has to be the buck one, obviously the buck story.
Yeah.
Get it? Because it's like backstory, but with a U.
It's gonna be the first
except out of the picture is obviously a reference to the camera, so the camera mystery is going to be out of the picture. The finale, David and Absalom, obviously is Olivia and Matthew learning about, I guess, unpleasant hero's dark side. It's talking about David being a sucky father.
Sir Buddy's Snow Day. I imagine that's just Snow Day, but with Buddy.
Yeah, they didn't even talk about it in the description because they want people to buy the album.
Literally, it's a literal title. Like, it explains what it is.
Yes. Secret of the Writer's Ruse, obviously, is the Jones and Parker.
Better have Maury in it.
One.
How would it not have?
I mean,
they're dragging out this Maury thing so
there was
much.
The one there was supposed to be the one in 63 that was about, like, there was probably going to be with Maury that was like, oh, their friendship's going to be tested and stuff. And then it got bumped, so it could be this one now.
Yeah, but it doesn't say anything about testing.
No, it doesn't. But it
says... think they just added in another episode to, like, drag it out? I hope
it does say, though, like,
Maury
the mystery may be bigger than they ever imagined, so that could be, like, hinting at, like, the wider spider web of Maury's machinations.
I think it's gonna, like,
but probably
have to do with Maury's family and Suzu, and, like... Maybe it'll say, like, what he did at his last school to get him, like, kicked out or whatever.
Yeah. And then the first one must be, Buck and Eugene go on a road trip. The boys' bewildering personal history. I'm really curious about exactly what kind of bewildering it is.
I feel like I might be a little surprised, but I'm not going to be bewildered. Eugene goes on so many road trips, and I'm glad we get all of them. It's just very...
It's ironic, given how long it took him to learn how to drive.
You know what I found? Like, all the characters who you'd never expect of something, you get them doing that thing, like, so much. Like, in Rosa, in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there was, like, she's so stoic and not emotional, yet she cries more than anyone, like, on screen. And then, like, Eugene can't drive for such a long time, and he's driving so much. I mean, and it's just...
I guess he did drive part of the Bernard trip.
But, like, he's always in cars and driving and doing other things. He ruined Bernard's car.
Okay, so yeah, that is what's going on. So, album art.
There's nothing of
Under the Surface. 6 stories on
pretty self-explanatory.
Heroes, secrets, and more. Wooten's taking a selfie underwater.
There's rust on that camera.
The camera has been underwater.
It's a rusty boy.
For a while. And there's algae growing on, like, the strap as well. Wooten's his mail cap is starting to fray on the bill.
He's wearing his mail uniform underwater.
Yeah, he did that for the picture for Swept Away as well.
Yeah, but Penny's actually wearing scuba gear.
So Whit and Eugene are above the water, and they have fishing poles.
Why are their faces so clear?
I think Eugene's face might be underwater.
Yeah, but
wait, no, it can't be because the water level's here.
Their faces are really clear. Like, I don't know about you, but I can never see anything that's at the top of the water.
Okay, so, like, the live show's happening now. There's only one of me. I don't know when we're going to get to hear it. We haven't really heard any word on that. They even took the title off of AIOO Wiki, so I don't know if it's changed from The Hand of Hope now. If any of you are/were on the cruise, let us know what's up with that, what you heard. But I saw a picture, which I'm going to throw up here, of the brand new, like, mascots for Connie and Eugene.
That is the scariest thing in my life. True story. You sent that to me, and my computer, like, froze or something like that, so it took a little while to exit out of the image. So I was staring at it for a long time, and no joke. You know how, like, in some horror video games or movies or something like that, because I watch a fair amount of horror movies, you see the monster, like, up close once, and then you're not scared of it anymore because you're like, I know what it looks like.
This isn't like that.
But this, I saw it for like very briefly in the small window on Skype, And I was just like, oh, that's creepy, I guess. And I clicked on it, and it wouldn't go away once I was trying to exit it. And it was like the exact opposite of seeing a monster in a horror movie, because it just got scarier and scarier the more I looked at it and looked at the eyes and put it on the screen. It's so scary.
Yeah, I did.
Can I just say it's the most depressing thing ever when I see the over 2 hours of audio. That just
it is. Yeah. So Wooten's down here.
Wedding ring!
Down here.
Wedding ring!
Wooten's wearing his wedding ring. Still, there's some fish. Lovely light. It's a lovely day.
Or in a canoe. I don't think that's too small to hold all 4 of them.
You're correct. The fact that they have fishing rods makes me wonder if Whit and Eugene did not come here to retrieve a camera, and Wooten and Penny came here separately than Whit and Eugene.
Do you think, like, they were just... The scene is just them, like, fishing and stuff, and they're just chilling, and Wooten just bursts out like an alien monster from someone's chest?
They're fishing, and then they start to see some bubbles come up, and Whit's like, oh, that's kind of odd, and Eugene's like, oh, that just happens from, like, the metabolism of carbon dioxide is being formed by, like mollusks and stuff underneath
and
the stuff.
Music builds
and the bubbles increase, and all of a sudden Wooten bursts out and he goes, blah! And then Whit and Eugene flip the canoe over.
Because apparently,
and this is after they get back in and dry their hair off.
Because apparently you can totally see everything perfectly clear that's above the water.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it works.
What are you talking about? There's no such thing as, like, reflect, like, the, like, underwater reflection from, like, the bottom surface of the water. Yeah. Yeah, so that's that. That's this album.
Wooten's hair is so frizzy and red, it looks like Miss Frizzle. Something from the book that was just like, what is with you and red hair, Phil? These characters don't have red hair. He said that Eugene was a redhead.
He did say that.
And Eugene has brown hair. And I was like, why are you making everyone a redhead when no one's a redhead? I could see someone arguing Connie having red hair, because I thought she kind of did for a while.
She has, like, auburn.
Yeah. But, like, Eugene doesn't have red hair. And Robin doesn't have red hair. She doesn't have freckles.
I always forget that Connie had purple hair for a while.
I like to think back on it fondly. And Mitch is like, you look so funny. And he starts laughing at her. And she's like, why are we dating?
It's a good look.
I like purple hair. Meg looked so nice when she had purple hair.
I think that's my favorite.
Actually, all the Meg's colors
were really always good. But I think my favorite is her purple hair.
I don't know what my favorite was. I always got, like, super into one of them. And then it changed.
It's like, now I'm super into this, too, because she always looks amazing.
She does. And I miss her.
I miss her so much.
I hope they bring her character back in Ruby, so she has to come back.
Yeah. Bring back the meme team.
The glow stick.
The literal meme team.
Nunchuck.
Yeah.
Girl.
Neon.
Yeah, Neon, that's her name.
So, yeah, predictions. I mean, we know which things in the description are going to line up with it. I'm super psyched for Buckstory episode.
I am beyond excited.
It's been so long.
Can you not see it in my face? I am Captain Raymond Holt.
So excited for that. I'm pretty excited that we're getting, like, a bunch of mysteries. I'm intrigued by what we're going to get from David and Absalom. It's not, like, a super common Bible story, because we've run through all the common ones by this point. Because it has been...
David King David.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know who Absalom is.
He's his son.
Don't tell me.
Okay.
Oh. You just...
I already said it earlier.
But we've already gotten that story before in Odyssey.
About Absalom?
Well, we already know about David and, like, him killing Uriah's wife.
What does that have to do with this?
Oh, it's different?
Yes.
Oh, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Don't. I want to be surprised.
When they first announced
story
this...
I don't know, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, you should read your Bible. When we first heard about this title, I told you about it. I guess that was like a year ago or whatever, so...
Yeah. 10 years ago.
Okay.
This is so many fingerprints on it.
Yeah, well, it's gonna get washed. So, that's everything for now, I think. Blackgaard book was great. Excited for album 64. Happy 30th birthday to Adventures in Odyssey, Victoria.
There's nothing.
We did it. The cruise, I think the cruise is done now.
Just clink, clink. I don't think you're supposed to clink empty glasses, but I don't care.
No, I drank the entire bottle.
How did you do that? I feel
so good.
Sick from drinking too much, and
good.
I just had one glass and a bit of water.
This is why I don't drink alcohol, because of this is gone already. Guys, 30 years. That's so long. That's the age difference between.
So old.
That's the age difference between Mom and I.
Odyssey's 10 years older than me.
Wild. 7 years older than me.
You're old.
I'm old. But not as old as Adventures in Odyssey.
Because it's so old.
It is.
It's like
Have we driven the home point?
We're going to connect these beep machines to radios.
Yeah.
And it's going to type words.
I love those beep machines.
Telegraph? Is that what it's... I forgot temporarily.
Yep.
I love beep machines. They send the words.
Love those noise boys.
Did you take that from something?
Nope.
Okay. That felt like something Griffin would say.
Well, that is all that I aspired to in life, Victoria. So, next time, we are going to be talking about There and Back Again, Part 1. And The Pact, Part 1, as well.
I feel like if you listen to any McElroy content... McElroy content, you use the word boy in your regular vocabulary 99% more, and I can say that as proof, because every single time I say anything now, I want to add the word boy to it.
Yeah.
And I can't, because I'm worried that some people might be offended, and they're like, you're misgendering me. I'm like, no, I'm using it as a neutral term.
And I see it popping up everywhere in other people that I follow now, because they're taking over the world, I love it.
I see a bunch of girls and boys asleep, and I'm like, look at those sleepy boys, and people are like, some of them are girls, and I'm
we need to end this now. Okay, next time, There and Back Again, Part 1, The Pact, Part 1. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as London Meltzner.
I'm drunk. Oh.
Shot. And you have been watching the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Happy 30th birthday.
Clink, clink. People are going to get after us for clinking with empty glasses.
We'll forget them.